Beautiful. My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the founder and executive director of the Children's Coalition Incorporated, and we're here today at the Veterans Affairs Medical Center in West Palm Beach, and we're interviewing a gentleman by the name of
Salvatore Petro.
Okay, Mr. Petro, and what is your date of birth?
08/19/1949.
And your current address, sir?
10299 Southern Boulevard, Unit 710243, Royal Palm Beach, Florida 33421.
Excellent. And what branch of the service were you in?
United States Marine Corps.
Okay, and what was your final rank?
E5, I'm sorry, Sergeant, Buck Sergeant.
Okay, and where were you born?
I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Where were you before you enlisted in the service?
I was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, at my residence with my family, my mother and father.
Okay. Can you move in a little closer?
Sure.
Thank you. Good, great. Okay, and what were you doing before you came into service?
I just graduated from high school in 1968. And since I didn't have I had gotten a scholarship to go to Carnegie Mellon University, and I went there for about a year and a half, and I decided it wasn't for me, and I then enlisted into the Marine Corps.
Okay. Why did you choose the Marine Corps?
I liked the way they operated. I liked the whole program.
Okay. Okay, and where did you go in? Where?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I went in April of 1968.
Okay. And so after you signed up your paperwork, where'd you go to basic training?
I served basic training in Paris Island. Okay, and then they sent me to San Diego to do my ITR in San Diego, and then they finally put me in Camp Pendleton, California, where they trained me to be a radio operator and radio technician, 2531.
How long was your basic training?
It was short because the Vietnam War was in full swing, so they wanted to put guys over there a lot quicker. Normally the training was supposed to be 12 weeks and they cut it to 9 weeks.
Okay.
So they got me over there pretty quick.
Okay. All right, so what was quick? How many weeks?
9 weeks.
9 weeks. All right, and then was that including your radio operator training?
Yeah. I'm sorry, basic training in Paris Island was 9 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, that was normally a 12-week program. And then they sent me to, like I said, San Diego and Camp Pendleton for the ITR training.
And how long was that there?
I would say about 6 months total.
Okay, and then after that you went straight to Vietnam?
Yeah, they were looking to send anybody over there that had my MOS.
Okay.
And I wasn't in a hurry to get to Vietnam, although I was willing to serve.
Right.
So eventually they ran out of everybody and they came to me and said, "You're on your way." I had just been married 4 months and they sent me over.
What was basic training like?
It was tough. It was before the revisions of how the DIs had to behave themselves, and they were pretty rough. But you know, after I had gone through the training and after I was in Vietnam, I then began to realize how important their training was and why they were being so tough. I mean, they were tough on guys just simply for smoking a cigarette. I mean, they knocked the hell out of you. I mean, to physically brutalize you. I remember one time when we were in boot camp, and we were supposed to blindfold ourselves and then dismantle our M16 and put it back together again in so many seconds. And there were a couple of guys that didn't make it, and they got the hell knocked out of them. So, and there was one holiday, it was Thanksgiving. We referred to it as Black Thursday because we were woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning with garbage cans being thrown down the aisle. We were then marched out to the place where we got fed, and we had to march through the food line without looking down at our food.
Right.
And they stacked a whole bunch of food on our plates, and we had to sit without looking down at our food and ate everything that was on our plate without looking at it, which was kind of difficult. Outside of that, that was typical of boot camp.
Like a lot of fun.
Oh. There were a few guys in my battalion that did not make it. And they got sent back to the newer battalion, the one that was still coming up.
Right.
Because they didn't cut it in one way or another.
Gotcha. All right, so after basic, now you go to radio school, right?
Yeah.
And what was that like?
That was okay. It wasn't difficult for me. They had me in typing classes.
Yeah.
And they had me in radios training. You know, that was fairly easy for me. It didn't take a lot of brain power to learn how to operate. Although I was later trained to operate what was called an ANTSC 15 van, which was what most people typically know as the Mars stations, which was a cubicle, enclosed cubicle with a 38-foot whip antenna, and it had two round-the-world output radio transmitters and receivers. I could take a general that was flying over Guam in a plane, and I could connect him to a landline and let them talk to each other.
Right.
Through my vehicle.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. Okay. That was pretty high tech, huh?
Yeah, and then when I got to Vietnam, they actually trained me to help operate a division, an office called Secret and Classified Files. I didn't know it at the time, but they had sent a couple of officers around my neighborhood where I used to live, and they were investigating me to make sure that I could receive a top secret crypto clearance.
Right.
And when I got that, then they allowed me to help operate a department called Secret and Classified Files, which was where we took encrypted information that was being transmitted to us, and we would take that around to other division headquarters.
Right.
And provide that information.
Okay. Okay. How was the food through basic and tech school?
It was edible. That's the best definition I could give for it. It was edible.
Did you have all the supplies that you needed, basically?
I had the supplies that they supplied me. You know, whether it was enough or not, that wasn't really a fair question.
Wasn't an option, huh?
No.
Okay. Let's see, where are we going? All right. Okay. Why did you join? Why did you join?
I joined because I didn't have a sense of direction at that point. When I had dropped out of college that was being funded for me, I was disenchanted with the courses that I was given, and when I dropped out, I really didn't have a job to go to or another sense of direction, so I thought getting some military service wouldn't hurt me.
Okay. All right. Did you see any combat?
Sure, sure. I was in Dong Hong, Quang Tri, the Qua Viet River, mostly about 10 or 15 miles south of the DMZ.
Right.
You know, so combat was an everyday feature. And I never got wounded from being in combat, but I was in a tower one day, an 80-foot tower on one of our borders, and there were some Viet Cong that were trying to come into our area, and they were lobbing bombs as they came, rocket bombs, as they kept trying to come closer and closer, and they were within 100 yards of where I was up in the air, and I tried to run down the stairs to get away from the explosions, and I fell down a couple of stairwells, but that was my clumsy fault. It wasn't like I got wounded from an artillery shell or something.
Maybe a little nervous?
Of course, it was one of the few times that I actually felt like my life was in jeopardy at any moment, you know. Of course, our site was bombed a couple of times, and you know, there was always an opportunity for somebody to put a bullet in you when you were there, because we were in a war zone. I mean, we weren't back in the area where you could take it easy, like down in Saigon or something. Well, Saigon, depending on the date and the time, was okay, but where we were much farther north, and we were always in an area where the enemy had an opportunity to try to take us out.
Gotcha. You know, were you ever a prisoner of war?
No, I was not.
Okay. Okay.
I decided that wasn't a good thing.
Did you see a lot of casualties?
Oh, I saw casualties every other day.
Really?
Sure, I saw a lot of guys that were in combat that lost their limbs. You know, we had to go around with body bags, cleaning it up, you know, counting for who was there, and getting their dog tags and all the information. So that was almost an every other day experience for us.
Right. Okay, were you awarded any medals or citations?
I was given a couple of commendations from my superior officers for particular embattlements that we were involved with,
Right.
and I would receive the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry
Oh, okay.
for a couple of events that I was involved with.
How long were you in Vietnam?
11 months, 27 days.
Okay, did you go on R&R
Never.
the whole time you were there?
The whole time I was there.
So when you left there, where'd you go?
I thought I was going home to the States, but I ended up being shipped over to Okinawa.
Okay,
They landed a C-130, and with full marching gear, they marched us into the back of it and they flew us to Okinawa.
okay. And how long were you there?
About 6 months.
What'd you do while you were there?
When I was there, I operated the ANTSC-15 van, you know, for all of the soldiers that were there. And they had me detached to go to different bases from time to time so I could help out every single military base that was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What was your experience there? Were there any casualties?
No, Okinawa was entirely different.
Right.
Okinawa was like being back in the States. I mean, there was no warfare going on. I mean, you had to account for yourself and you had a job to do, but it was a non-military, a non-violent situation.
Right.
There was no one there that was going to hurt you or try to hurt you.
Gotcha.
We always had weekend time off to go out into the elements and, you know, circulate with the culture that was there.
Uh-huh.
It was interesting for me. I tried to learn the language. I learned a little bit of the language. It's called, it was basically a Japanese
Right.
property, but at that time we had a 100-year lease with them. And their language there was Ryukyuan, which is a form of Japanese. And I learned,
Dialect.
I learned very simplified Japanese at the time.
Okay. Okay. How did you stay in touch? How did you communicate back with the people back home?
Letters,
Uh-huh.
and they took a long time. I'm talking a couple, 3 months.
Yeah.
Anytime I wanted to communicate, it took more time than necessary.
Right. Okay. How was the food in Japan?
Better than,
How was the food in Vietnam?
well, the food in Vietnam was basically sea rations. You know, in Okinawa, we could actually go out into the outside world and have food with the Japanese food out there.
Right.
Sorry.
That's okay.
But the food was much better there than, I mean, you had to pay for your food outside of off base. You had to pay for your food, so. But it was a better experience then.
Did you live on base or off base?
Well, I was always stationed on base. You couldn't live off base. You couldn't be a brown bagger there.
Yeah.
You could be a brown bagger in the States.
Yeah.
But not when you were there.
I got you. Okay.
There was always, you were always stationed on a military base, and the only time I had off base was when we had weekend excursions that we could go on our own.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay. Did you in Okinawa? Did you have all the supplies you needed?
Always did, yeah. Anything that I really needed, I was provided by the military. You know, so.
Tell me, Vietnam, the whole ball of wax. Actually, how was your stress level? How was your sense of pressure?
I lived in constant fear of being killed. You know, I mean, there was not a time, you know, when you're in the combat zone in Vietnam where you didn't know that your life was in peril. It was all, you know, it was most of the time it was about 115 to 120 degrees. So you're rolling over in your sweat at night, just trying to get a few moments of comfort. When you were in the bush, you were eaten alive by mosquitoes and other insects. And you were always aware that at any moment, day or night, somebody could put a bullet in you. So I had one experience where we were our platoon was attacked in a place called Happy Valley.
Right.
And we had 74 guys going in and we had 22 coming out. I was one of the fortunate ones coming out, and I remember that I was laying on the ground and I was petrified, but I kept shooting my M16 at what I thought was the enemy. I saw a little small figure come out from behind a palm tree, maybe not a palm tree, but a tree, maybe about 100 yards out in front of me. And he was shooting his AK-47 at me. So I was shooting back at him. Didn't know if I hit him. And I didn't realize that my gunnery sergeant was kneeling down over top of me. And as this figure rushed me with the AK-47, I heard, over top of my head, I heard boom, boom, boom. And every time I heard the boom, I saw a big hole open up in this guy's body. At first he got hit in the lower stomach, then he got hit in the right side of his chest, away from his heart, and then he finally got hit in the neck, and then the last one hit him in the head, and that put him down. And he got folded back, and after it was all over, I walked up to him, and the gunny was with me, and I said, I don't know if I hit this guy, but he said, I hit him. He says, I hit him with a 45. He says, I walked the 45 up his body until I found a point where he was going to go down. And I was looking at him, and he had wires wrapped around all of his vital points, around his armpits, his elbows, his knees, his ankles, his neck.
Yeah.
They were wires pulled real tight. And the gunny finally explained to me that they get high on opium, so they don't feel much pain.
Right.
He says, and then they wire off all their vital points, so if you hit them, they're not going to go down unless you hit them in a place where it'll kill them dead. And that's the only way that guy got stopped. I might have hit him once or twice, but it wasn't enough to stop him.
Right.
So that was my experience in all.
Incredible. Okay. All right. Well, that you just covered your unusual experiences section in that one. Okay. Did you keep a diary?
No, I didn't. I'm not one of those guys who write everything down.
Gotcha. Okay. After Vietnam, you went to Okinawa. You were there for 6 months.
And then they shipped me back to the States to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and I was attached to the 10th Marines battalion at that time. And that's how I served out my rest of my time there. Most of the guys who were coming back with me were getting early outs. They kept me because they said I had a critical MOS, which they kept me to the very last day. And actually, I served my last day out in Puerto Rico. We were practicing war games over there, and one night they woke us up at 2 o'clock in the morning. They flew us out in Chinook helicopters to another island called Calabria. And they landed us there, and they force marched us up the beach. And then we came across this was in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And they force marched us across this chain link fence that was about 12 feet high. And I saw fireballs flying through the air, and I later found out they were Molotov cocktails being thrown at us by the Calabrians who lived there. And what the problem was that the Navy had an impact area where they practiced shooting their bombs onto the island.
Right.
The Calabrians were angry because it stopped their cows from giving milk and their chickens from laying eggs. So they built a small sanctuary out of some makeshift wood. They called it a church so that the Navy couldn't fire anymore.
Right.
So the military had us go in and dismantle the church board by board. They dug a hole the size of a 6x, and they had us throw all the pieces of wood into the hole and bury them so that the Calabrians couldn't use it for a church anymore.
Okay.
So that's how I spent my last 30 days in the service.
Okay, so when you separated now, you were in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, almost to the last day. They flew me over the last day from Puerto Rico to sign out in Camp Lejeune, and off I went.
Okay, and where'd you go?
I went back home to Pittsburgh. I had a wife and kid waiting for me at the time.
Okay.
And
what'd you do?
What did I do? I almost immediately got a job working as a security officer for a private company, and I had to go borrow $50. I remember borrowing $50 from my grandpap to buy a gun so that I could actually do my job, because they didn't provide that.
Right.
And I started out as a security officer there. I later got hired by the Pittsburgh Police Department, and I worked for them for a while. I later quit them so I could get a better paying job working as a bus driver, because they weren't paying police officers very well.
Got it.
And then after that, I went to school under the GI Bill and got trained to be a home builder.
Oh,
And shortly after that, I started my own business for 35 years.
wow, okay.
And I was fairly successful at it up until 2010 when the economy took a dump,
Right,
and here I am.
okay. Did you use your GI Bill at all?
I said I used the GI Bill to go to school, to get trained as a home builder.
Uh-huh.
As a home builder.
Right.
And that's what I did for the next 35 years,
Okay,
up till 2010.
okay. All right, I got a few more questions for you. Did you make any close friends while you were in the service?
Yeah, I did. And some of them from my area, but they didn't come back.
Okay, got you. Have you joined any veterans organizations?
Yeah, I'm a lifetime member of the VFW.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, we did career. What did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
All of the above, and then some. And it's a life lesson, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you carry that out through the rest of your life.
Right.
You don't involve yourself in something like that and not have it impact the way you think and how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you grow up fast, and it makes you learn some hard lessons
Right.
that last throughout your lifetime. Things I didn't appreciate at the time that later on in life I did.
Right.
But ultimately, I don't think I regretted it.
If you had to do it all over again?
I would rather change a few things, but the basic idea of doing that, no, I'd still do that.
Right. Okay, what kind of activities is your veterans organization? What do you do in there? VFW? Meetings or activities or what?
Well, I became an officer of their council when I was there. I also involved myself in private sector, being the president of a couple homeowner associations in my lifetime.
Right.
So I always involved myself in extracurricular activities, associated with whatever I was doing at the time.
Okay. Do you attend any reunions?
Never have.
Okay. Okay. How did your service and experiences affect your life? What was the impact that it's had on your life?
I would say in every way, in every possible way. I mean, there are life lessons that you learn being in the military that carry yourself throughout your life.
Right.
And every time I turn around, there's always a lesson that I learned the hard way that made a decisive factor as to what I did in the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely had an impact and very, very involved.
All right. Is there anything you feel like we left out?
I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, if this is about your military experience,
Right.
as I think it is, then no, I think you hit on quite a few subject matters that pretty much made it concise.
Did we cover all the places that you visited while you were in the service?
Well, I started out in North Carolina, in Parris Island. I went to California for training. We covered that. I went straight to, they flew me out of El Toro, California to Hawaii, and we were in the airport. Never got to see the rest of any part of Hawaii. Then they flew us back out in a long flight to Vietnam.
Right.
And they popped open the doors there. The temperature was about 120 degrees. You coming out of air conditioning at 70 degrees, going into 120. It really knocks you on your butt. And they drove me up in a 6x up Highway number 1. And I remember seeing some pretty unusual people going up that road. Things I can't even repeat, not on camera anyway.
What was the culture like there?
The culture, the people themselves were very friendly, but you could never really trust who you were talking to. You could never really trust their friendliness because you didn't know if they were VC. They mingled with the rest of the people. The VC got into our encampments, posing as friendly South Vietnamese.
Right.
And you really never know who you were dealing with, and you didn't know if you were going to later have a bomb go off in your lap or something like that. The very first day I was there, they had a little 4-year-old kid, Vietnamese Vietnamese kid, and they taped two hand grenades to each of his hands, with him squeezing down the trigger, the mechanism. They let him walk into a movie theater, and they told him to open his hands when he got there, and he did, and he blew up part of the theater, killed a lot of people, including himself.
Right.
So that was like that kind of set the tone for being in Vietnam.
Right.
So I never forgot that, and I never forgot that every day was a life-threatening experience there until you got to leave. And most of my friends who I made friends of then did not come back.
Right.
I don't remember one guy that I had as a good friend that I could say he came back and I could communicate with him.
Right.
Just didn't happen. I was with a rock band at the time before I left, and three of the guys that were in that band with me, they all went over there.
Right.
And none of those guys came back.
Really?
So it modified my life as well.
Bit of an impact, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I like the idea of being involved in posterity.
Yeah, I hear you.
So you're saying that this will be in the library?
I'm saying that's why, more often than not, veterans overall have not gotten to tell their story.
Yeah.
And
that's a really good thing, because most of the veterans that came back from Vietnam were not appreciated.
Right.
They were looked on with disdain. I remember when I landed in the LA airport and I walked up and I asked to have a drink at the bar, the guy totally ignored me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally ignored me. Didn't want to have anything to do with me.
Right. Okay.
I know.
Well, thank
Still
you.
going on.
I just want to thank you very much for your service.
You're welcome.
And thanks for the interview.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay.
Will I get a CD of